the past. I think you where I'll be interested in getting to get your thinking about that. Should we be talking about having a steady relationship between the Valley State and South Africa around issues? And if that is the case, we will say what issues are they? What is it that is invaluable in a relationship of the School of Social Work and the university and connections here? You see, we can think in terms of, for instance, what is on now or is potentially on. In other words, can there be a proposal to have a foundation on a program that is permanently in South Africa, pursuing a developmental program such as strengthening relationships between social work and the unfolding kind of problem areas in South Africa. In other words, you hear what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that I think it can't just be a question of what do you think should happen. You see, I think that there is a need for us to talk about what do you mean. I think that most people would say it would make sense to have a permanent relationship between Grand Valley State University and the institution there. What is it? Grand Valley.
Yeah, to have a permanent relationship between Grand Valley State and what institution? I think maybe that's what also they might need help with, to narrow it down as to which institution, in which case on your end, whichever institution that you are familiar with and familiar with its administration and its how should I say, flexibility or being receptive of having another because even for whichever institution that you approach in South Africa, even for them, it's their prestige to be connected with an institution in the U.S. However, there has to be some substance in that. Don't just to have something on the resume to say, "Wow, we have a connection with somebody in the U.S." So then I think that's where you come in also handy, as to in your profile in your black book, which institution that you think you can approach and you can actually bring this proposal to, even before we even know what those issues are, who might even be willing to even step in. And it's almost like what we're doing with Gvs. Okay, so you have like with Jeremiah, just wants to be known that he has some connection in the U.S., but what can you do with that connection? I mean, our mutual interest being the students, building, or whatever it is. So in your case, you probably have a portfolio of people or the institution. That's where I think your guidance to Grand Valley State, I think that's what they're looking for, because they themselves, like, even if they are the institution from the U.S., they can just land in South Africa and say, "Hey, I'm here, so I'm gonna go help." They have no background, and wherein you have the knowledge and the understanding of how it works there and over here. So that's where we need to get your guidance as to which institution that in your mind, even for now, even if one or two, one of them might work out.
It obviously must be Grand Valley State University.
No, with which institution in South Africa though?
Yeah.
Which institution do you think would be the one? I mean, the Grand Valley State is open, obviously. That's why they are pursuing this. They are ready for that, but they need guidance from your end as to which institution then do you see working with, and then who do you, just personally yourself, which institution do you think that you know well enough and its administration that they will be open and to this kind of proposal to work with Grand Valley State, and then you can always, then I think it's almost, you can almost see what the needs of that institution are that can be married with the with what Grand Valley State can provide, vice versa.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you clearly, and I can relate to, I think what the intention is. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
I have always had a view that there should be a sort of a permanent and ongoing relationship between Grand Valley State University and South Africa for a whole number of reasons. I mean, one of the things you mentioned is this ongoing interest in not kindergarten, but young student sensitivity to development issues in South Africa and in the world. And that's one of the things that we might have a reason for being interested in getting involved. In other words, I think it would be a wonderful idea to have the Grand Valley State University being related to South African issues via a program that would be administered or fed or made alive from that relationship. We could easily link it to the even the Gvs initiative, not in any kind of dramatic way, but to say it is important to have children in South Africa growing together with students at the Grand Valley institution in the university, and then we can tease out what those issues are. Is it development? Is it growth? Is it academics? That I think we can talk about. But I think if we agree that it makes sense to have the University of Grand Valley State University being related to South Africa through certain institutions like I don't want to be too specific in the sense of saying that we've got something ongoing, but we already have had something going on with the University of Grand Valley State University. That's why I would have liked to talk to George and say what is their thinking at the School of Social Work with relation to the question of an ongoing relationship with the university.
Okay, so I guess if I'm understanding what you, because funny that you should mention the Gvs thing, Mamsi and I was even saying that to my knowledge that in a way sometimes God opens up the door at the awkward time. It might seem, at the most opportune time in that with what we're trying to do, even with KLCT, it might not necessarily be that maybe the Grand Valley program has to relate to a higher education institution, because the issues that we are trying to deal with right there with KLCT are the social work issues. Children left with no parenting because of the parents have died of AIDS. So you still have that. You still have HIV and all these sexual transmitted diseases that people still need to be taught on. And I think part of the students that came from Grand Valley State, they were divided in their areas of interest, and also going into even dealing with the genital, what do you guys, when you call people older, is it genital, whatever, genitology, whatever thing. So that also falls under social work. And you, sorry?
Geriatrics.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Something like that to that effect. I just remember genital. So basically, that's why we're saying that maybe this is a blessing in disguise into where you are actually you are there in your familiar areas, in your familiar area, but this is what we're trying to kickstart with KLCT, including the health department and all of those the issues that they want to deal with and social work are the same issues that we're trying to address where we are right there. And you can even mention the fact that although you started this at a smaller scale, that we already have a group of American students who are coming down there to do exactly that, but at a smaller scale. And this is their first year studying this. And obviously with Grand Valley State, with their older people, I mean, obviously with much more mature people, the things that are possible to get done. And just throw that out there. And then I also would underline the fact that you don't want to be specific. There are other universities that could possibly be linked with Grand Valley State, but you don't want to be specific without understanding what it is that Grand Valley State wants to get out of this, in which case you can always match that, but you need to hear them. But you are throwing out this idea. Boy, I think I just wrote your marketing.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, I think I get it. I mean, it makes sense because you can suggest all you want, but it's good to also understand also what they're hoping to achieve so that by the time you sit down and say, oh, okay, if this is what it is, this person can actually meet that or this or this or that. And then let's start from there, and then we see then if I can pursue those ABC people now that we know what we're both looking for.
Yeah. You see, the issue actually is much more important than it appears, because we've already done some spade work here.
Mm-hmm.
There is already some effort at development that is emanating from a relationship between schools here and programs here and development.
Exactly.
And one of those can be cited as the Gvs school.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can talk about the importance of Gvs as a developmental project that has got a potential to have some impact on
the community,
on relationship, not only between the children and the students, but also between the institutions, the university, and the ongoing development. You see, we can move on from there by simply saying what that relationship is between not Grand Valley but between America and the students is already starting to address much wider issues that are of interest to ongoing education, which is children, disease, care, development in broad terms. We can talk a bit about that. The Harry Nari Smuller, for instance, had always attempted to say, what can we offer in the Grand Valley via this relationship, if we have one? And we never actually got to answer it. But in a sense,
now, who did you say had that question?
Harry Nari Smuller.
Okay, and he is who?
He's one of the staff people that have always been interested
on the program.
Yeah, he was with us in the development of the idea of a relationship between Grand Valley State and the university. Grand Valley State and the United and the I wanted to put it in a way that's going to be positive. You see, we talked about in visiting the states